From Corolla One Studios in Glendale, California, this is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, Steve Austin, and director Russell Tiller. With Gina Grad on news and Bald Brian on sound effects, and now, on the bright side, last week proved him right about the best home security being a Confederate or don't tread on me flag. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice but to get on. It mandates you get it on now. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for telling a friend. We love that about you, right, Gina Grad?
That's right.
Handball, Brian. I want to kill Nancy Pelosi.
Buddy, you can't say that.
Oh, come on. This is not the time for that. You could get in a lot of trouble.
All right. Well, I had some good news. Max Pat, I think I emailed you a photograph, but I'm not sure if you got that or not. I was walking around, and these days, I've just, well, if you don't have it, doesn't matter.
I got it. It's a different email. I got it.
It's these days, you know, it's kind of, I look at graffiti sort of like I look at bumper stickers. You know, bumper stickers used to be a lot of who you wanted to bang and what drug you wanted to do, what band you liked.
They're aspirational.
Yeah. You could take the In-N-Out bumper sticker and make it the In-N-Out Urge because it said In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
Right.
And you just let the world know that
Clever.
you're ready to have sex.
You're down to pound.
You're down to pound, and all the gas, grass, and ass, and all that kind of stuff. Then there were just the basic bumper stickers. The one that said, I don't know why, but when I was a kid, I always liked the bumper sticker that said, "Back by popular demand." It was somehow suggested that you and your Toyota were now back by popular demand.
Popular demand.
It's like a high self-esteem bumper sticker. I like that one. I like the one, I wasn't a fan of the series, but there was the Beam Me Up Scotty bumper stickers.
Oh, you like that one?
As though they were traversing the galaxy in their spaceship.
I liked bumper stickers. It gave you something to do when you were behind somebody, especially for me, a slow reader. You know, it could take a whole light for me to get through some of those bumper stickers.
Coexist must have given you an aneurysm.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Now it all kind of gave way to something political or some sort of virtue signaling or something, some version of that. You know, now there's a lot of people wanting you to know where they stand politically or where they are with the environment or how they are with their kids, you know, those kinds of things versus being horny or popular.
Right. The weirdest ones are the cars that are plastered with them all over the back. Like, just by virtue of the fact that you have 35 bumper stickers, I know where you're coming from politically. I don't need to know what they say.
Well, and ironically, you want people to know where you stand and to respect that. The more bumper stickers you have, the less we respect you or listen to you.
We do think you're insane.
Covered in them.
The second you pull behind someone with more than 2.5 bumper stickers, you know this person's insane. It's sort of like the person that's been to Disneyland 26,000 times. You know, they have all the buttons and tattoos and stuff. Like, you're insane.
Flair.
And then graffiti has now turned into gang stuff, political stuff. It kind of followed the way of the bumper sticker. Graffiti used to just be, you know, Kilroy was here or some chick's phone number or something, you know. Now it's taken on a more political thing. But I was walking around about a half hour ago, and I saw graffiti that I have not seen in years. It was just a good old-fashioned cock. Somebody had just drawn the cock with the hairy balls.
Very veiny.
It's got veins. It's got a big hammerhead. It's got the urethra slit in there. And it's just a good old-fashioned dick on the side of the freeway barrier. And I thought, this is, again, I think of it like when you hear about people talking about pickpockets. You know, I go, oh, that's so quaint versus having someone just cold cock you walking down the streets of Manhattan or bash you over the head in the subway or push you onto the tracks, you know, just pickpocket, quaint.
So if we're trying to explain this to our grandchild or maybe grandparent, we have to say things have gotten so bad that a cock is charming when you see it on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel less good, Adam, about the cock that clearly the two-tone paint, it's been painted over like this is a repeat offender? Like this
Serial
is
cocking.
a second tone of paint that the cock is now on top of.
Yeah, somebody tried to clean up. They never get the right shade of paint when they go over the other thing that they painted over. They got the weird gray that's over the white. Not sure why they can't just match the white up with a little Swiss coffee exterior. But either way, I saw cock graffitied, and I thought for one moment I'd hearken back to a different America.
How nice.
Where,
This was when America was great.
This is Mayberry stuff.
Yeah, people made casseroles. They played with lawn darts
They
and
left apple pies on their windowsill.
and they graffitied cocks on the sides of retaining walls going under
Better
freeways.
time.
So it was a better time. Somebody tweeted me today, wanted to know Brian's origin story, and I thought, we haven't talked about Brian's origin story as it pertains to this show for a long time. So I thought, yeah, that's interesting. Let's get Brian's origin, if ever. So
I know that you and I did a two-parter taking the years of 4 or 5 years ago. We got into it pretty deep, but that's behind a paywall, and not everyone can access that. So sure, you want to get into it?
Yeah. So Brian, the first time I met Brian, he was working as a phone screener for Loveline. What year did you show up at Loveline? Oh, you showed up at K-Rock first.
Yeah. You and I met probably in 2002, screening calls at Loveline.
Mm-hmm.
The backstory behind that is I finished college in the spring of 2000, and for people who remember that era, that was right when the .com bubble was bursting. The whole recession, blah blah blah. And I actually got a job out of college. I was writing for a website, and that website never actually launched. They were never funded. It was a startup, and I was out of a job in, 6 or 8 months or something, and assembled a series of, I hustled. I assembled a series of part-time fill-in jobs. That's where I was
Secret shopper.
Secret shopper, taste tester for Jack in the Box. My territory was like the Diamond Bar, Inland Empire area, like Chino, all that stuff, which is not the nicest area.
Emerald City.
Yes, all that stuff, Azusa, all that. So I secret shop for Jack in the Box. What did I do after? I guess I was doing a bunch of part-time jobs, and I came across a listing that was like, oh, K-Rock needs phone screeners. And of course I knew K-Rock had been in LA for 5 years. I'm like, oh, that's the cool station. That's the one that plays on the modern rock and has the legacy and everything. So I applied and got called for an interview. And as far as I could tell, because I went in, they were interviewing a bunch of people that day. As far as I could tell, I was the only one who wore a tie and a coat that day. So I think
should have automatically eliminated you.
That's a good point, but I don't know. They got the job, so I started screening calls for the flashback lunch at K-Rock, and 80s, whatever, 90s stuff. And after I did that for about a year, again, like Adam said, half of radio is just showing up on time. I just showed up on time every day, and I guess they deemed me a valuable employee at that point, because when a screening job opened up over at Loveline, they're like, oh, well, Brian's a good call screener. Let's offer him the job. And that was $12 an hour as opposed to $6.75.
I remember.
So that was big time. That was 2002. I was at K-Rock for 9/11. That was not when it happened, but like I had to work that day, and we screened a lot of calls, people asking where they could donate blood and where they call the radio station because that's very in the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You can't call a news station and talk to people. They called the radio station. So 2002 is when you and I met, Adam. Probably spring-ish, I'm guessing. I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I remember we had Tara, don't call me Tara, goddammit, screening calls. She was probably screening calls when you were screening calls. You guys probably...
We overlapped for at least a year or more. Tara's a friend, and Damien is the guy that I took over for. He was on his way out, and so they needed a new call screener.
Do you remember Damien?
He was there for a few days. He was bald. it wasn't much of a transition between him and me, just two bald guys screening calls. But he was there for like 4 or 5 days just to kind of train me. And there's Chubby Brian at the Westwood One Studios.
Yeah.
That's 2002. Look at the computers.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. I don't remember Damien. I remember Tara just because she settled my hash one night when we got a whole bunch of calls that were all on the same subject and kind of a bummer. Maybe they were like 3 abortion calls in a row or something like that. And then during the commercial break, I left the studio and went around to where the booth was, the engineering booth, and the phone screeners were. And they were always watching The Simpsons, I think, was up on the TV set.
That was being rerun like on local TV during Loveline.
And the TV was like up in the corner on one of those mounts, like up in the wall. And everyone was watching The Simpsons with no sound. And then I came in and I said, hey, we just got 3 abortion calls in a row. I don't want any more bummer calls. I want a little Casey Kasem. You know, I don't want any more stories about guys who had to put their dogs down. And everyone just kept staring at The Simpsons. And then at some point, Tara, don't call me Tara, started laughing at the TV set in the middle of my soliloquy about not taking the same calls. And then I said, hey, I need your attention. And she said, I can watch TV and listen to you. And I thought, okay. And then I said, well, you know what? Stop watching TV and listen to me. And she said some form of I don't have to. And then I said, I can fire your ass. And she said, you can't fire me. You're not my boss. And I said, yeah, I am your boss. And I could fire you. And I remember, wow, man, she was like 22, maybe 23. I don't even know how old she was. But lest anyone think this stuff is new, this stuff goes back. I mean,
she was right in the sense that you didn't sign her paychecks. But I assume if you had gone to Ann or Kevin Weatherly and said, hey, this part-time minimum wage worker I'm not happy with, they would have made a change pretty quick.
Yeah.
I could have lobbied and maybe could have got something done. I don't know why she wanted to risk that, but she didn't seem to be sufficiently frightened of me coming in there. But that's what I remember. And Bald was, sober and on time, and I was impressed with him. And so when it came time to go do the morning radio show, I think I said Brian should come with us.
You know what memory just popped into my head that I have not thought about since probably 2003? Wow, this is funny. I literally just thought about this. There was a period, and it never came to fruition, but I believe it was the genesis of the Adam Carolla show, which was Ann came to me, of all people, and was the producer of the show, Ann Ingold, and said, Adam wants to incorporate more news stories and news of the day, and he suggested, this is a meeting you and Drew had with Kevin Weatherly, he suggested that you, Brian, you bring in some news stories and you read the stories and blah blah. And this is kind of what morphed into the show we do today. I never put the pieces together because it never happened, but I was extremely flattered, and obviously that was something you at least had in the back of your mind. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I have a vague recollection of that. Then
this would have been circa 03, 04 ish.
Yeah, I don't think they were talking to me about doing morning radio then.
It was like incorporating it into Loveline.
Yeah, I get that, but I don't think I had my eye on a different show. I love the Loveline schedule, as weird as it was. The majesty of the Loveline schedules, it was Sunday night through Thursday night. So I always had weekends to do whatever I wanted. And Sunday night is kind of a lost night anyway. Like, we work 10 to midnight on Sunday night. You're never doing anything Sunday night, after
you're preparing for work the next day.
After 10 o'clock. So I always liked the kind of weird short work week with Sunday. I could do you could do whatever you wanted. You could watch all the ball games and drink all the beers. All you had to do was kind of get it together for Sunday night. So I liked that. And I always liked the nighttime schedule. I liked the no traffic on the way in. I liked the no traffic on the way out. I liked the fact that we would always kind of slide under the radar. There was no business in the building. We weren't at K-Rock at the time.
And keep in mind, we were in downtown Culver City, which to people in the LA area now, it's this bustling, hotspot, just restaurants and everything. At the time, you could park anywhere. It was a dead zone for the entire night.
It was completely dead in Culver City at night. There were no restaurants or anything. There was no nightlife. There's I've told you guys, the one time I went out in Culver City after the show was with Chris Penn. Sean Penn's,
you must have gone to the Culver Hotel because there were no other options.
No, it was so.
Been there for 100 years.
It was so on point for Chris Penn. He's like, the show ended, and he's like, we should get a drink. And I said, yeah, where? And he said, I know a cop bar.
Oh, that's right, Jocks or Dailies.
Jocks or Dailies.
Yeah. It's a cop bar. We can go there and get some beers. And I was like, okay. So that we did. I'm glad we did. When I told that story to Sean Penn, I was like, tell me if this sounds totally on point for your brother. Let's go to a cop bar after the show. And he's like, that's exactly what that guy would have done. Like, that's exactly who he was. Like, you're not making that story up when the brother goes, Sean goes, that's exactly the kind of guy Chris was on a Tuesday night. We're going out after midnight. So, we're looking at a picture of Drew and Bald Brian from back in the day.
Producer Lauren?
Producer, junior, producer Lauren. And I don't know who she's standing next to.
I can't see.
I do. My favorite producer Lauren story of all time is after working with her for like 5 years. I said, so, producer Lauren, what have you learned from working with me? And she said, well, you don't have to be prompt. You don't have to be smart. You can talk about whatever you want, and they can never fire you. And it's who you know. That's how you get the job.
She was surely just busting your balls.
Nope, dead serious.
I don't think Lauren has a ball busting.
No.
She was genuine.
Ironically, did a fantastic job of busting my balls.
It's true.
They can't fire you, and it's who you know. I don't even know how that worked, but they can fire you. And I didn't know anybody when I got the gig. But we digress. So now it's time. Now we move forward to 2006.
Well, I'll color in the broad strokes, of course, are correct. But what happened was, I was working a full-time job. I was done with the radio. I was working. I was writing for Channel One News, which was the in-school news network. It was like closed-circuited, like into schools. Mm-hmm. That was my full-time. It was a corporate gig. I did that for 2 years. After I coached football, after I screened, calls at Loveline, I was like in the corporate world. And I got a call out of the blue one day from a guy named Mike Maddox, and
Mm-hmm.
Mike Maddox was a producer on Too Late with Adam Carolla, which was the just launched Comedy Central talk show that you were hosting, of course. It'd be weird if someone else was hosting Too Late with Adam Carolla. And Mike's like, hey, Adam, mention your name. I'm producing for this TV show. We need someone to produce this segment where we take calls, basically. I'm like, well, yeah, I can definitely do that. And this is a Thursday afternoon that I get this call, and he's like, yeah, we need you to start Monday. And I'm like, I'm in a corporate job. Like, I can't just like leave. Hey, so long. I'm gone as of Monday. But it was a great opportunity. It was great money. It was certainly more than I was making at the time. And I really wanted to do it, and luckily my boss was very cool about it. I had to go into her office the next morning and be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry to do this to you, but this is an opportunity I have to take." She's like, "I understand. You'd be a fool not to take it." So I segment producer on your show, the phone call segment. With Jimmy's cousin Ivy was my coworker. It was very nice, and that lasted for a few months. It went to the end of 2005, pretty much to Thanksgiving break 2005, and that's when that ended. And that was right when the news was breaking that you were taking over for Howard Stern, blah blah blah. You're going to be on KLSX and a few other stations. And I approached you, nervously. I didn't know you that well at that point. After work one day, and I was like, "Hey, man, I know you're staffing up. I'd love to be a part of the radio show if there's some opportunity." And it was the only job they had open at that point was call screener. And lowly call screener is where I went. Yeah, I had experience, and it was a step back. Obviously, that's about as entry level as it gets in the entertainment industry. The PA call screener, that's all very entry level, and I just really wanted to be a part of it. I loved Howard Stern. I was a big fan of yours. Obviously, I knew you, Loveline, all that stuff. And I was like, this is like a momentous occasion in radio history. I want to be a part of it. I want to be there. So I took this, again, minimum wage job. It was hourly. It wasn't even salaried. And jumped on board from day one.
And you screen calls for a number of weeks, maybe months. And
it was 5 months.
And Mike,
there was Cinco de Mayo when I stepped in. Sorry,
Mike Lynch was doing the sound effects. We all know Mike Lynch, but from this show. But he was sort of in studio doing the sound effects stuff. But he was slated to get married, and I think had a 2-week honeymoon planned in Europe. I think
Ireland.
And when he stepped away for 2 weeks, Brian slid in. And Brian did such a great job with the sound effects and memorizing all the sound effects and everything that when Mike came back, there was no job for him in the sound effects department because Brian had stepped in and proven himself. Mike being the kind of guy that Mike is. There's a picture of us from back in the day.
He was on his way to burn the building down.
Well, Mike, I mean, Adam, you can speak to this. Mike was doing double duty. He was the show's writer, the show's lone writer, and also doing the in-studio stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mike's kind of a low-key, behind-the-scenes kind of guy anyway, so he didn't need to be in the studio, and I think it just freed him up to do more of his writing job, which he did want to do. So he took it very gracefully and was completely fine with it. I don't think that he ever had an issue with it. I remember being a little nervous about it because we're going to basically tell him that Wally Pipp took his place. Is Wally
Other
Pipp?
way around.
Oh, yeah, that what's his name? Lou Gehrig took Wally Pipp's place. But either way, he took it very well, as he always does. And he just slid over there, and then Brian was doing the sound effects. And Brian had like some sort of gift. I think it's your game show memory. Maybe your trivia game show memory.
Yeah. People asked, the sound effects, how do you do that? I'm like, I just have a good memory. I remember what everything is called. I remember where everything is. Fortunately at the time, lest you listeners want to go back and listen to some of those shows, I was very green. I mean, I didn't really have any training. I wasn't the polished broadcaster that stands before you today. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, Adam. You showed me a lot of loyalty in those days. Like I wasn't a great broadcaster. I was finding my feet. I was going the sound effects, but I wasn't loquacious and eloquent. And not that I am now, but I'm certainly better. I'm certainly a better version of what I was back then. So thank you for sticking with me all these years.
Yeah, my pleasure. The broadcasting stuff, as Gina will attest, is just reps. And you kind of wonder because it's funny when you hear really seasoned broadcasters, you go, wow, that woman or that man is a really good broadcaster. But oftentimes they're not funny, they're not interesting, they're not even the kind of person you'd want to sit next to at a cocktail party or something. But yet they're such good talkers. And
they're relaxed and they have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's so invisible, and it could only be done with repetition that you get really good at speaking into a microphone. And again, you don't have to be engaging or fascinating or funny or anything. It's just such a repetition. Not that Brian isn't all of those things and more, but I know it sounded like I was going down that road, but it was the reps that were hard to come by, and that's why.
There's no minor league. So not in this situation.
Not here.
And so, like, when I got into radio, I was like, well, there are all these funny guys I know from the Groundlings, from the Acme Theater. These guys do tons of voices. and they're super funny, and they're great improvisational actors, and so on and so forth. But they would always go with the guys from San Diego who'd been there for 13 years or whatever, because those guys had the reps and the repetition. And it only comes with that. And you could take the funniest stand-up or the funniest groundling or the funniest whomever and put them behind the mic, and they just can't keep up until they get those reps. And nobody wants to wait around for them to get their reps. No one's going to give them a year talking into a mic. And I could remember that feeling. Like, I remember doing Kevin and Bean stuff and like going out in Manhattan when we were in New York and like trying to do a man on the street thing, just setting it up, just going like, here's who I am, here's where I am. I decided to talk to people. You don't just realize that just speaking that way and being
It's unnatural.
It's unnatural. You never do it. You're not having a conversation. You're smoothly doing this. You're attempting to be smooth, and you don't, again, it's all invisible, and you only know it when people are bad at it. When they're good at it, it just feels natural, feels like that's the way everyone talks. But I could remember like watching Kevin and Bean, especially Bean, and he was like such a good broadcaster, you know, or just the simple act of interviewing someone, like literally just asking them questions or going back and forth, even in a man on the street kind of thing. It was nerve-wracking. It was difficult. And then at some point, that just becomes what you do. You don't really think about it anymore. But I do remember when I was at KLSX, I don't know if the Nasty Man would come on after us, but I do remember walking into the studio.
He predated us.
I was going to say, was he on when you were on?
No, he predated. You were listening to KLSX probably, but he was not on at the same time as us.
Maybe I went to check the studio out before our show went on the air, and the Nasty Man had all these signs up. I mean, literally like printed out in big block letters. Your window to the world. I'm the Nasty Man, the man with the tan.
Yeah, lily pads, basically.
Like it just spread out. So if he ever ran out of stuff, he'd just look up and say, I'm the man with the tan from Guam. I think that was his thing. And that's why in radio you have all those sort of catchphrases and isms and all that kind of stuff. But yeah.
They're called crutches.
Oh, they're called crutches. Yeah, get it on, Dawson. Good pull.
Well, and you know, the other thing the three of us have in common, which this does not happen ever, at least to anyone I know. I mean, my dad was in broadcasting for 55 years and had 5 moves to 5 different markets. We all started broadcasting in Market 2.
That's a good
There's
point.
nowhere to cut your teeth in, you know, Podunk, Indiana, nothing. I mean, we came on and it was showtime from jump.
I started on K-Rock. I started on the biggest radio station in the biggest market, which was K-Rock, on one of the biggest radio shows, Loveline. And I remember going, Jesus Christ, I did not get my reps anywhere before this started. And when we started, Ricky Rackman was the host. And so he
had reps.
He was the host. And one of the hosting things is coming out of commercial, coming back to commercial, setting up the guest, you know, back doing the here's where he's from, or here's the name of the album, and here's where it can be released, and so on and so forth. And I was a great talker, but I had no experience in any of that sort of traffic copping stuff. That was that was a weird time.
And you know what we all have in common, speaking of what Gina said, Dawson too, I mean, is, you know, the advice that you give out a lot, which I think we were doing before you even said, which is we all worked for free, or at least very, very cheap, you know, $50 a bit for you, and whatever I was making screening calls at KLSX was probably $14 an hour, whatever it was. But it was the opportunity, you know what I mean? Like, forget the fact that it was exciting and cool and new and in the spotlight. It was just fun. It was a cool opportunity. I wanted to be there.
Well, yes, and to your point, you know you're in the right you're in the right business for you when they offer you that opportunity and you say, "And I'm getting paid."
Yeah,
because that's something I would have done for free. You would have done for free. Yeah. I was call screening for Nelson Salsa in the middle of the night. And then Conway pulled me in to phone screen and produce for him. And I was getting money. I was getting $10-12 an hour. That was all I needed to know.
I used to always tell everyone sort of on that subject when people would say, when I was doing a lot of interviews coming into the morning show and taking over for Howard Stern, people would inevitably ask, like, aren't you nervous or are you sure you want to take over for Howard Stern? I mean, that's, that's pretty big shoes to fill. Are you sure you want to do this, essentially? You have a career. Well, you're going to screw it up. And I would always just say, well, look, Brad Pitt was married to Jennifer Aniston, and then they got divorced. Now, would you want to be the next one to bang Jennifer Aniston after Brad Pitt? She's used to Brad Pitt. Now she's got you. That's got to be intimidating. And the answer is it is. But who's going to turn down Jennifer Aniston? And that's the way I looked at it. All right, Stone Cold Steve Austin's going to join us in a minute. First, let me hit True Niagen. As we age, we start to see it in the face. You start to feel it in your bones. They're creams that claim to give you younger skin, energy shots that give you youthful energy. Let's look a little deeper beneath the surface on how we can counteract the effects of aging. True Niagen helps us age better by supporting energy-generating engines that exist in our bodies, helping us restore youthful energy. Tiny repair enzymes work deep in your cells to help you recover from lifestyle routines that are hard on your body, including sleep deprivation, intense workouts, poor diet. True Niagen supports these enzymes. True Niagen is safety tested and backed by Nobel-winning scientists. Age smarter with True Niagen, and right now, new customers save $20 on a 3-month supply by going to TrueNiagen.com and entering the promo code Adam at checkout. That is TruNiagen.com, and enter the promo code Adam. I take mine every morning, as does Dr. Drew. You can check out and save $20 on your first 3-month supply at TrueNiagen.com. Right, Dawson?
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll back with Stone Cold Steve Austin right after this.
The Adam Carolla Show presents Steve Austin's birthday cocktail party for December 18th. Let's see who's invited. The greatest clown in history, Joseph Grimaldi. The physicist who discovered the electron, J.J. Thomson. Franz Ferdinand is here, and he did not bring a guitar. He brought World War I. And he's followed in by Joseph Stalin. This party's about to get weird. Ty Cobb just showed up. Betty Grable is here. Keith Richards showed up, and he's still alive. Steven Spielberg. Brad Pitt is here. So is Tommy Davidson. Country singer Tracy Byrd, Casper Van Dien. Well, here comes Katie Holmes, Christina Aguilera, and Billie Eilish. Steve Austin is on the Adam Carolla Show.
Wow, that is a hell of a birthday cocktail party, Steve Austin. The show, by the way, Straight Up Steve Austin, new episodes Mondays at 11 p.m. Eastern Time on USA Network. Congratulations on the show, Steve.
Thank you, man. We had a lot of fun making it.
Yeah, I watched your last show or one of your other shows where you brought the contestants out to the Broken Skull Ranch and kind of put them through their paces. That was really enjoyable. What was that one called?
That was Broken Skull Challenge.
Yeah, that was a really fun show to watch. You know what? Why a lot of these shows are so good now is instead of taking people and celebrities or whomever and sort of putting them into a format, they're now going to celebrities, guys like Steve Austin, going, what do you like to do? And it's like, I like to fire crossbows. I like to drive dune buggies. I like to drive race cars. I like to do burnouts and Brodies. And they go, fine, do that. We'll film it.
Pretty much. I mean, they pitched me the idea a couple of years ago, and we shot the pilot. They picked it up. It took a while for them to pick it up, and then we got season one in. And so, when you kind of first start doing something, you kind of trying to figure out what exactly it is. And after we did season one, I think going into season two, kind of know a little bit more about what the show is, and it helped me obviously with a few more repetitions. But man, this is a fun ass show. And, we're not trying to. It's not rocket science. It's a couple people out there doing some activities, driving some cars. You're a big car guy. Some stuff on water. I can drive any kind of vehicle in the world. And then we do an activity and it turns into a challenge. And so, I hate to call it a job, Adam, but I mean, it's a job. But man, I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
What was the submarine? Who was driving the submarine?
Hey, yours truly. That was a Sea Breacher. And that thing, half speedboat, half submarine. It'll go pretty deep, it'll go about 60 miles an hour. That thing was incredible. I had to learn, each time we do something, I got to go in the day before. We'll go through all the beats. Our guest is not there, but, we got to learn cameras. Everybody wants to get their move down, but it took me a couple hours to master that. And that thing was an absolute blast. I think you'd love riding in one of those or driving one of those.
How deep will that thing go?
A couple of feet. You can get down there pretty good, but then you got to come on back up. And the thing about it, when I was first learning, those things are really, really tight. And when the first one I was learning, well, the guy was teaching me how to do it. So I was riding back. And dude, it is very tight back here. And when I go, I've had a lot of MRIs in my lifetime. And so normally when I get an MRI, I need something to help me relax. When they shut that cockpit and I was back here behind that dude, I was like, the only consolation I had is that thing is 100% unsinkable. So that was my saving grace. And I said, dude, you're either going to puss out or you're going to man up. So I manned up and then learned how to commandeer the thing and drive the hell out of it.
You start off as a football player. You get into wrestling after football career's over. How did you get into wrestling?
Man, I was working on a freight dock, driving a forklift and loading heavy boxes in the back of trucks on a freight dock. And we would go down to the Sportatorium. The Sportatorium is a very famous building in Dallas. And I'd watch the Von Erichs, one of the most popular wrestling families ever come out of Texas, along with the Guerreros. But anyway, we go down there and throw stuff at the wrestlers and yell at them. And one of the guys had a wrestling school that he opened up. And I'd been watching wrestling since 7 or 8 years of age. So once I saw that going to that school would be a foot in the door, that's when I said, hey, here's how I'm going to do it.
What we were talking before you came on about repetition and about being able to speak into a microphone and how unnatural it is. Obviously, you got the physicality part down. Was it tough to talk at the beginning?
Yeah, I wasn't worth a damn on the mic because I was always a shy kid anyway. And then all of a sudden you get in the business. I mean, when you're the youngest cat in the dressing room and those guys are grizzled veterans, most of them in their mid-30s, it's very intimidating. Some of them have the gift of gab. And also, man, when you're running up down the road and that's your living to learn how to talk, to draw people into that building, it becomes an art form. So, over the course of a few years, I learned how to master the mic, but it was not easy for me.
Tell us some of the horrible gigs you played and how little you were paid at the very beginning.
Man, I remember wrestling one time in a Chevrolet dealership in Dallas, Texas, getting suplexed in the parking lot, not in the ring, in the parking lot. And normally, I got the pay stubs to prove it. When they shipped me to Tennessee, or when I drove my 1988 base model Hyundai Excel to Tennessee for that territory, I was making either $15 or $20 a night, and those are all 400 miles round trips, coming and going. So you starve.
15 to $20 a night.
I'm going to cover the gas one way.
No, that's why you got three guys in the car, and they're veterans. And while they're stopping at McDonald's, I would just stay in the car with my thumb up my ass because I couldn't afford anything, and I wasn't going to take no handouts. So you pay your dues, and then maybe later you'll make some money.
When did it start? When did the plan come together of sort of climbing up the ranks? Like, I never know. Do they pick you? Do you pick them? Like, how does it work where you get the nod to start becoming the world champion?
Man, it's based on a lot of things, like what you look like, what you talk like, how you can wrestle. or are you just charismatic and just a giant? Different keys will unlock the lock. And so everybody has a different key. Some people have the same key or the same blueprint. And if a company sees, hey man, this guy, we can get along with him. He can draw money. He's easy to deal with. Man, he's hard to deal with, but he's really good in the ring and on the mic. So it's kind of like being that player in the NFL, you know, like you can be really, really good and be somewhat of a headache, and they're going to put up with you. Or you can be the greatest guy in the world and also draw money, and they'll love you.
Seems to me like the guys who really conquer the globe are kind of guys like The Rock, who sort of do everything. Like they have the right look, they can talk, but also total professional businessmen, you know, never cross people. Don't, you know, we all know the NFL version of this where, like, I don't know, Terrell Owens or something like that, where you're this incredible physical specimen and you're amazing, but eventually you're poison in the locker room and the team is just going to part ways with you. Yeah. Do you remember early thoughts of The Rock? Do you remember? Did you? Yes, sorry. Brian.
No, go ahead, finish this line of questioning, because there's a guy I want to ask about who's that kind of locker room poison, but I want to hear about The Rock first.
Oh, no, when he came in, you could see there was a blue chipper, played football down at Miami, third generation. So when he came in, you could see, you know, right off the bat when you walk in the room, good-looking dude, tall guy, big. And it turns out he could also work. You know, took him a while to put it together, and they booed him out of the building for a little bit. But when he kind of turned heel there for a little bit, when he came up with The Rock, all the pieces came together because he had the looks, he had the size, he had the ability, but he didn't have the right gimmick, and he hadn't put it all together yet. And then he put his promo together yet. When he did all that and turned to The Rock, that's when he started ringing the cash register.
Brian?
So what I was going to bring up, I'm a big wrestling fan, Steve, from back in the day, and the guy who was dynamite in the ring, just a magnetic personality, but maybe had questionable mic skills, but eventually worked himself out of the business is the Ultimate Warrior, who, of course, was a superstar for a short period of time. They even made a documentary called The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. Like, he was just, apparently, maybe you knew him, obviously I don't, he was just impossible to work with. He made it very, very difficult to get along with, or even, like, you know, put on a show. Do you have any experience with him?
No, well, yeah. You know, I remember his career way back when he started with Continental, USWA, and went through Mid-South. He came through Dallas, Texas as a Dingo Warrior. Hell, I was there in the crowd watching him. And he always had that great look, charisma, size, and star power. Now, I can't speak to his business dealings. You know, I've heard sometimes it can be difficult to work with. I can say that, you know, I remember at WrestleMania 12 in Los Angeles, California, many, many years ago. Hell, I was dressing right beside him. The guy was always top-notch to me. But, you know, different guys operate different ways. And I heard he could be difficult. Everybody kind of knows that. But, you know, if you can draw money and put people in seats, you know, people, you know, you'll get more chances.
Yeah, sure.
Is maybe this is even more for Brian than Steve. I don't know. Did the Iron Sheik sort of go nuts? And where is he today?
Steve, I'll set you up. They had made a documentary about him, which of course was very compelling and really well done. His social media presence is a lot more other people, you know what I mean, putting that on than it is him. He's a great personality. Steve, take it away, please.
Talking about the Iron Sheik?
Yeah.
I guess I believe he's still around. I never did pass. Sheik is one of the tough shooters. He's one of the toughest guys in the business at the time. And, you know, if you're going to get crossways with him, he's probably going to come out and lose an end. He was known as being a real tough guy, very, very eccentric. I never traveled with him, never worked with him. But, I mean, there's more legendary Iron Sheik stories than probably there are of anybody else in the business. And from what I understand, you know, he could be an interesting guy to hang around with.
There's I know Goldberg a little bit, and Goldberg is still traveling and doing wrestling shows and going to places like in the Middle East and that kind of stuff, and making some pretty good paydays. Is there any wrestling in your future? Will you go back on a card? Is your body? I mean, you look to be in great shape, but I don't know how the pain. I don't know the pain and the joint level. How is that for you?
Man, every day, I feel good through all the surgeries and all the things I put my body through. I feel pretty good. I ain't got nothing to complain about. As far as getting back in the ring, when I retired in '03, whenever I had my last match with The Rock at WrestleMania 19 many years ago was my last match. I'd certainly go back and do an appearance, this, that, or whatever, but I have no designs, no desire to get back in the ring in a wrestling capacity. I want people, for me, for just for myself, I want people to remember the same Stone Cold Steve Austin they saw back then, and I don't want to go back and be 80% of him, 85% of him, or 75% of him. If I can't be that guy 105%, I don't want to do it. And it took me a long time to get the business out of my system because I didn't want to retire. It was just some nerve issues in my neck, and I pulled the plug on my career. So I'm over it. I'm done. I'm retired. In that line of work, I continue to do the things that I do. So when people say, oh, yeah, you're retired now. No, I do a lot of things.
I saw on the promo when I was watching the trailer for Straight Up Steve Austin, the new episodes, Mondays, 11 p.m., USA Network. I saw our friend Joel McHale on there. What was Joel driving?
Well, he came up. It was a Toyota Land Cruiser. What was it? It was badass. The guy from, I don't know if it was Icon or the other guy.
Yeah, Icon. Yeah, okay. That's Joel's car, I guess, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, he had just had that thing completed, and he showed up in that thing, and I'm a car guy as well, so that thing was beautiful. I know he just got that new Porsche 911 as well.
Turbo.
Joel's awesome, man. You know him because he can stand up, he can host, he can act, he can do it all. And that guy is lightning quick on his feet, and that's what I like. So hanging out with him, like anytime you ask a question, he's got something for you. You don't know which way it's coming. Joel McHale's super quick.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's an
athlete.
He loves cars.
Got the athletic pedigree.
And he's an athlete. All right. Again, Straight Up Steve Austin. It's new episodes Mondays, 11 p.m. Eastern, by the way, on USA Network. Where are you? You out in Nevada?
Yeah, I got to get out in Nevada right now.
How far out of Vegas are you?
No, you're thinking down south. I'm northern Nevada, down from Reno.
Oh, yeah.
Not too far from Lake Tahoe. A little bit nice. I mean, well, Vegas is really nice, but I like it out here. It's a lot more quiet. And as you know, most of Nevada's public land. So yesterday I loaded up my buggy, my side-by-side. We got about 65 miles in. So I ride just about every day out here, get my workouts in and do the things I'm doing. I'm still doing voiceovers, but northern Nevada is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, beautiful country. Steve,
we should all aspire to have Steve Austin's life now, not just back in the day. I mean, chilling, hosting, doing all this great shit, having all the great cars. That's awesome.
I think Goldberg moved out to Texas and got a ranch, and I think it seems to be the new world order. Go out somewhere, get some land, get a little freedom, get your vehicles, build a huge garage, and enjoy the second half of your life. Good to talk to you, Steve.
Hey, man, good talking to you, Adam. I love you.
Love you. All right. Steve Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Website, I should say, BrokenSkullRanch.com is where you go if you want more info on that. We're going.
By the way, Broken Skull Ranch, way more badass than Spawn. Yeah, if we're talking,
indeed.
If we're talking how scary something sounds.
Tiller Russell has a documentary out. It's a 4-part docuseries on the Night Stalker, which I lived through out here, and I remember that. I remember that time very clearly. Yeah, Richard Ramirez. So we'll talk to him. We'll do that in a moment. First, let me hit Geico. Do you rent your home? Well, you do one or the other. It can be hard work, but I'll tell you what isn't hard work. Bundling those policies at Geico.com. Geico makes it easy. You bundle your homeowners and renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you got enough to do. So just go to Geico.com, get a quote, see just how much you could be saving at Geico.com. Visit Geico.com today and get to bundling. Let's see. What else has Tiller Russell, what other docs has he done?
Buddy, I'm legit excited for Tiller Russell because he made, I'm not exaggerating, one of my favorite documentaries of all time called Operation Odessa. That is on Netflix right now. I recommend it to everyone. It is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is incredible considering what it's about. It's like about like the Russian drug trade, Russian Colombian drug trade in like the 80s. Like, this is not that kind of important documentary, they don't normally like heap praise upon. It's spectacular. I love it, and I'm excited to talk to him about it.
Well, we'll talk to him, and we'll talk to him about the Night Stalker. Is Ramirez, he was sentenced to the death penalty, died in 2013 at age 53. Good.
Cancer.
Yeah, just a really scary time in Los Angeles. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll talk to Tiller Russell right after this.
The Adam Carolla Show presents another honorable mention from the cutting room floor for the 2020 Ace Awards. Kyle Dunnigan as New York Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Quick story. There is an old lady, 97 years old. She's in a coma. If she gets this virus, she will die. We all need to not leave our houses.
What I want to say is the 97-year-old woman who's in a coma, while it would be tragic if she contracted the virus and was claimed by it, she's still 15 years older than the average American when they die. So I'm saying, while it is a tragedy, young people are withering away at home and need to get back out and get some sunshine and get to work.
What I'm hearing from you is that this woman's life means nothing to you, and you would like to murder her. Am I hearing you correct?
Oh, I think you're overstating what I'm saying.
Okay, quick story.
Okay.
About opening up too soon. My grandmother, she was in love with this man, and she opened up her legs too soon to him, and she became known as the town whore. Okay. This is what can happen to you, Mr. Carolla.
The 2021 Ace Awards are coming this December.
Wow, we just got a tweet from Andrew Cuomo saying we simply cannot stay closed until the vaccine hits critical mass. The cost is too high. We will have nothing left to open. We must reopen the economy, but we must do it smartly and safely. I agree with all that except for the last part. Maybe we'll do that in California. I don't
keep
know.
wishing in one hand and crapping in the other and see which fills up first.
Sounds like something your dad would say.
Yeah, my mean grandma.
Or your mean grandma.
She did.
Yeah. Also, again, schools still closed. So my kids haven't been in school in, I don't know, 9 months or ever or whatever.
And remember, they used to say summer vacation is so horrible because it's almost 8 whole weeks of no learning.
Yes. So it seems like we should open up those schools in California, but I never hear any plans about that. All right. So that's interesting. Frank Stallone is on tomorrow, and Kyle Dunnigan is going to come on as well.
Oh, wow.
Probably as his brother. So that shall
think.
be interesting. Also, Frank is, if memory serves, does a hell of a Sly Stallone impersonation himself.
Yeah.
So we could have some dueling Slys on the show. Kyle's also going to be on Friday when we're in Naples, Florida, doing a live pod there. Stand-up show after, and then Friday, Saturday. That'll be this weekend at Off the Hook in Naples. I think there's a couple tickets left, so if you want to come out and say hi, that'll be great. Tiller Russell, director, producer, and he's doing the 4-part docu-series on the Night Stalker, the hunt for a serial killer. That'll be available on Netflix. I think he's going to pop up any time now. Yeah, I remember this guy. He was demonic. I think he was the guy who didn't he do like the pentagram in his hand? Does that sound familiar?
That does sound familiar, but this question for Tiller, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll figure out when.
Where did he operate? Was he mostly in the Valley, or was he all over L.A., or what was his thing?
I think he was all over. I do recall it was very random, and I do recall like the ultimate terror is when things are random. So if people are as sad as it is when you find out that they're preying on streetwalkers or runaways, you kind of go, well, I'm not a prostitute. So
it's a bit of impunity. Yeah.
I'm cool, you know, or when you find out this disease only strikes these people, but not those people. It's when things are utterly random. We were talking yesterday about how people are freaked out about sharks. I think that's part of what freaks people out about sharks, the bizarre kind of randomness of it. Like this girl, she was a lady surfer and she was in 3 feet of water and a bull shark attacked. Like this sort of randomness of sharks freaks people out, and a random serial killer freaks people out as well. Although whenever they do that thing where they go attack, see, there's the pentagram. Whenever they do that thing where they go, you know, most shark attacks occur in 3 feet of water, and we're all supposed to be freaked out. But last I checked, that's where everyone was. You know what I mean? You're not like 70 leagues of water.
No.
You know,
that was in the deepest, darkest of the ocean.
Yeah, so I was out swimming in the Marianas Trench, and a fucking bull shark. Like, everyone is in that area. Every human who goes to the beach is in about 3 foot of water. Like, if you took the average shark attack is in under 3 foot of water, the average beachgoer is in under 3 foot of water. So
correct.
It makes sense. But Richard Ramirez, I guess, was very random, would end up in people's houses. It always struck me how easy it was, even with celebrities, where they go, so-and-so woke up and he was just standing at the foot of the bed. Like,
oh God, that's so horrible.
It is. And I used to tell people all the time, put a fucking barrel bolt on your door in your room. It'll for sure prevent the kids from seeing the back of Dad's sack in action, number one.
Best case.
And people will go, well, how's that going to stop anybody from coming in? I mean, it's just a barrel bolt, it's a little catch, you know. It's a couple of wood screws going into the casing of the door. It's like, it's not going to stop anybody, but it will wake you up if somebody decides to walk through your bedroom door. It's also an interesting thing that I think a lot of people, especially a lot of people with kids, don't like the idea of having the bedroom, the master bedroom. They don't, or we can't use that term anymore.
Primary bedroom?
The owner bedroom?
The primary owner's problematic as well. The primary bedroom. They don't like the idea of putting a lock on that door. Like, I would say, put a fucking deadbolt on that door. And then everyone would go, yeah, but what about the kids? And it's like, well, they can knock, number one. But number two, if the shit does go down, mom and dad, or mom or dad, should be locked in the room in order to call 911 or to do whatever. The worst it can be is standing at the foot of the bed with the kids asleep downstairs, and then you're fucked. All right, Tiller Russell has joined us, and we'll get into this macabre story. Good to talk to you again, Tiller.
How you doing, Adam? Nice to see you again, my friend.
I'm doing well. So let's talk about your 4-part docuseries on the Night Stalker. What do we need to know about Richard Ramirez? I lived in L.A. during his reign. I remember everyone being freaked out by it, but I don't remember a ton after that. So who was this guy and what possessed him?
Well, what this story kind of gripped me from the beginning, because what you had was, it was unprecedented in criminal history to have a serial killer that was responsible for this diverse and grisly array of crimes. His victims were men, they were women, they were children, they were from different parts of the city, different racial backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And the murder, it was completely patternless, right? Sometimes he used a gun, sometimes he used a knife, sometimes he used a hammer. So it was unprecedented in criminal history to have one man that was responsible for such a shocking array of crimes, which made it incredibly difficult for the cops investigating it, and unleashed this citywide, reign of terror where there was this feeling, whoever you are, anyone could be next.
How long was his reign, and how many victims did he claim?
It was a couple of hundred days in terms of, all counted. And in terms of the total number of victims, it's fascinating. One of the things that, more north of a dozen, but one of the things that comes out in the series is that beyond all of the murders that he was responsible for and convicted of, there were numerous other both kidnappings, abductions, as well as murders. When I sat down with his lawyer turned to me and said, this wasn't his first rodeo. And I think that there may be many other people that are still out there. And it really it was chilling and gave me pause to think that who knows how many other victims are still out there. Was
he a Los Angelino, or did he transplant from somewhere?
Ramirez grew up in El Paso. He was a burglar, knock around sort of junkie burglar in El Paso, and then ended up coming to LA and lived downtown around the bus station, kind of in the Skid Row area. And what he would do is he would steal cars. And then he would, get jacked out of his mind on whatever dope, shooting cocaine or heroin or both of them together, and then go zipping around the city and picking his victims at random. And so oftentimes off of freeways, but it was in all these different places. And these was, interesting aside is that there became all these theories. Okay, he's hitting yellow houses. Okay, he's hitting, and nobody knew, desperate as we are as human beings to find a pattern and a reason and a rationale for this. People just, as the panic gripped them, started coming up with these competing theories of what he was doing as this kind of boogeyman was stalking the night.
Is hold on, Gina's got a question in a second, but I want to squeeze this one in. Is serial killing at an all-time low in this country?
I was just thinking that.
I don't, and is it because of forensics? I mean, is it because of Ring doorbells? Is it because, if he was trying to operate in a modern day Los Angeles with everyone with a Ring doorbell and all the forensics with DNA and all the other technology we have now, could he have his reign in today's Los Angeles?
It's a great question, and certainly not like this. Just the fact that everybody's got a camera and the data that's aggregated right by the technology, it would preclude it happening exactly the way it did. And at the time, contextually, what you have to remember in 1985 is there was no DNA. Evidence, forensically being used. There wasn't even a computerized fingerprint database. So when the cops would lift prints, they would literally have to manually hold up cards and look through a magnifying glass to match a lifted print to a known suspect or perp and put it together. So all of those technological advancements, I think, you wouldn't see it in quite the same way. And yet, for whatever reason, Southern California has been kind of ground zero for serial killers, from Manson through the Hillside Strangler, through Golden State, through Night Stalker. For whatever reason, they love LA.
Gina, your question was?
Yeah, of course, it goes without saying that, kids with tough childhoods or whatever don't grow up to be serial killers. That said, it does happen. And he seems to fit the profile in the sense of really a tough childhood. Does that sound correct? Or could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, I think you're pointing out a really great point, which is, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. This is somebody that his dad was like a cop in Mexico, I think in Juarez, and would literally take him out and chain him up next to the graveyard. And he had a cousin that had these, pictures of abominations that had happened in Vietnam that he would subject Richard to. And then he's a junkie, right? He's out of his mind on dope doing this. So certainly all of those factors contribute to it at a fundamental level. But at the end of the day, it was really interesting. Every person I came across, I would ask them, do you believe in good and evil? And is this an example of pure evil? And everybody has a different question, a different answer to that question. Certainly the acts were evil, what he did. I don't think anybody can dispute that.
How many folks got away from him?
Well, it was astonishing what actually ended up happening. There was a guy who was literally, a woman who was shot in the face. Bullet enters, right next to her nose, exits the back of her head. Somebody else, a man that ends up getting shot in the face. He uses a shitty old .22 that kind of, misfires or manages to miss any organs, and literally chases Ramirez out of the house after being shot in the face by him.
That's a man.
It's crazy, and then the cops actually called that out because everybody was aware that the serial killer was out, and he was reading the paper, right? He was looking to see what the nightly news coverage was and changing his pattern based on it. And so they interview one of these grizzled homicide cops, Frank Salerno, one of the stars of the show, and he goes on and he calls out Ramirez, and he says, "Man, you're a coward. This guy, you came up and shot this guy in the face, and he chased your ass out of the house." And that kind of, quickens the pulse of the investigation from there as well.
How did they ultimately catch him?
It was an amazing story. It's the kind of thing, like if you were to make this up, if you were in a writer's room and you were to pitch it, you'd get laughed out of there and everybody would tell you you're an idiot. But because it's true, it's kind of, a gift from the storytelling gods. What ended up happening was he had run out of town when he was finally unmasked, and his name and face were in mugshot were put in the paper. And he ended up sneaking back into town, and everybody was looking for him to be at the bus station or the airport and to be leaving town. And instead he was sneaking back into Los Angeles at the time. And so as he is, on the front page of every paper, suddenly it's the people in the neighborhoods that see him. And so it becomes, the very places where this guy is kind of unleashing his depredations and terrorizing the public, he gets clocked and gets spotted by the people in the neighborhood, and they literally chase him down, grab him, hold him, and it's the neighborhood, it's the citizens of LA that catch him in the end.
It's funny you mentioned the writer's room aspect and all that, because there's a lot of art imitating life and vice versa. I don't even know what came first, but that's a plot point. The one you mentioned, it's a plot point in Manhunter, the prequel to Silence of the Lambs, where Will Graham is planting in the papers. He's telling a reporter, like, we believe that the Red Dragon killer is a homosexual. They didn't believe that, but they were trying to infuriate him, and it worked. But it's funny that they will do that and it'll enter into pop culture and vice versa.
Yeah, well, and it's fascinating, in this case, what they did, and I think Michael Mann was drawing directly from this story, in making that film. But there was this crazy cat and mouse between the cops and the media, right? Because it was this amazing story, and the media is having this frenzy to get the word out, let the public know that there's a serial killer stalking people in LA, and the cops and the reporters, it's their job to get it out, publish whatever information you can, and yet for the cops, they're aware that this guy is very closely observing what they're doing and what's in the media, and changing his decisions and MO and little pieces of evidence that could tie him to the case. So that is a big piece of the series too, is the cat and mouse between the media and the cops and the public, and who has a right to know when.
Was he, when he was captured, he did the whole pentagram thing on his hand. Famously, we just saw the picture. People thought he was, demonic. Was he trying to play up the unfit for trial kind of mental insanity sort of angle of it? Was that something he was playing up, or was he that guy?
Well, this story has this kind of crazy aftermath and surreal afterlife to it. So when Ramirez is finally, apprehended and brought to justice and ends up in trial, it's this circus-like atmosphere where he's drawing pentagrams on his hands and flashing it at at people in the audience, and then the courtroom is also packed with groupies who are sending him nude pictures and artwork, and there's this sort of literally circus-like frenzy that happens to it. And the question, ended up being asked a number of times, to what extent did he really sort of buy into all this, Satanism, and to what extent was it, a sort of publicity stunt in the aftermath? And one of the things that he had told Gil Carrillo, one of the leads in the show, the lead detectives in the show, was he said, I tried God and that didn't work, so I turned to the devil. So who knows at the end of the day to what extent he believed what he was saying, but carving pentagrams on walls and using lipstick and leaving it on people's legs, it sure makes you wonder.
Did he, as he was a junkie, I guess he did most or all these when he was out of his mind on dope. Then he goes to prison. Does he have any kind of reckoning? Does he get sober in prison? Did he find Jesus Christ? Did he write a book? Did Geraldo interview him?
Well, it's a weird story in that regard because, you have this like explosion of interest and this guy becomes this unlikely like satanic sex symbol in trial, right? And then eventually he's sentenced to death row and he's sentenced to San Quentin, to die via lethal injection, but it never ends up happening. And so eventually he ends up, dying of cancer, and he does end up marrying somebody, gets married to a woman in San Quentin, but it's this, I think the story just kind of faded to black. There wasn't the spectacular execution or the complete transformation. It was just this ignominious end to this strange, surreal life.
Did he sire any kids from prison? Sometimes guys get married. I know like Tex Watson and guys like that famously had like multiple kids after being sentenced to death, but he married.
Fascinating. I don't actually know in the case of Ramirez. I think if he had, I probably would have heard about it, but I don't actually know. In a way, we decided that for us, the series was going to end, telling it from the cop's point of view, the victim's point of view, the citizens of LA. We didn't want to like glamorize this guy and sort of fall into the trap of celebritizing him in any way. And so for us, kind of the story ends with his conviction and his sentencing.
He gets the death penalty, but the death penalty, we had it. I think famously Charles Manson was convicted to death, and then it got overturned. Not his case, but the death penalty in California got overturned.
Then his arts and crafts career took off.
Yeah, Manson. Yeah. Was the death penalty in place when Ramirez was sentenced to death?
When he was sentenced, it was in place, and then as we know, it ends up taking enormous amount of time for the machinery of justice to actually deliver on that, and then of course there's all the legal challenges that happen, and then before his ticket finally gets punched that way, his ticket ends up getting punched by the universe by getting cancer.
How was interviewing his attorney?
It was fascinating. He signs his emails, the attorney for the devil. And the crazy thing about it, fascinating guy, and his like notoriety in the aftermath of representing Ramirez made him kind of a go-to guy for notoriety. So he ended up then representing El Chapo for a period of time, because he was like, man, if you're like jammed up in the biggest way possible, who do you call? You call this guy. And so he's had this whole crazy career, but everybody, that I had the chance to sit down with, it was a startling experience, whether it's sitting down with his attorney or sitting down with the cops who were, finally in the cell with him after hunting him for 3 months. And these guys have been like shot, beat up, stabbed, they're not afraid of anything. And one of them tells the story. He's like, and I'm sitting there looking at this guy and I see his hands start to twitch. And I think, if this guy starts floating around this room, man, I'm going to run the hell out of here. So it was, everybody was gripped by the
lore,
the insanity of the story.
In the doc, as someone, I remember being in Los Angeles during this time period. It was probably the worst time in my life. So I was kind of looking at it, if he broke into my apartment and shot me, that would be a lateral move for me in terms of my career and where I was financially. So I had mixed feelings about it. I never heard him speaking on the news or being interviewed. I saw lots of ominous pictures of him, but I don't know that I've seen him being interviewed or answering questions. I imagine if that exists, you have it in the doc.
Well, what we ended up using is I wanted to be very sparing about kind of including his voice and his perspective for the obvious reasons of like, hey, this guy's not he's not the Jim Morrison of serial killers. This is a murderer, predator, that deserves the fate that he received in some way or another. But what we did end up getting our hands on finally was he had conducted a series of audio interviews with this crime writer that wrote a book, and so we ended up connecting with his widow, who went and dug this box out of storage and pulled out the audio cassettes. And so there are these little hits that you get periodically between the crimes over the course of the 4 episodes where you're hearing his musings about what he was doing. And it's just enough to kind of give you a glimpse of like, man, to hear the voice and hear the crazy and what he has to say. So we sprinkled that very sparingly across the series.
Was it difficult when you contacted the widow? Was she reticent to speak? Was she helpful?
Everybody has their different threshold with this. The widow was amazingly helpful with it and generous with her time and with those materials. Some of the more sort of harrowing interviews were people that had lived through it. We did this interview with this woman who was 6 years old when Ramirez, creeped into her window and picked her up and spirited her out into the night and kidnapped her, and then ended up molesting her and miraculously released her alive. Right. And so going into an interview like that, you recognize, okay, this is about the most horrifying, traumatizing event a human being could possibly live through. And yet I was sitting in the room with this woman, and there was this kind of amazing cognitive dissonance to it, because on the one hand, she's like vividly recounting the details of exactly what it was like, and hearing like Madonna playing in the background and what was in the room, as this was happening to her. And yet on the other hand, she was so strong and empowered and like refused to be defined by what had happened to her. And she said, yeah, this happened to me, but this is not who I am. And this did not destroy my life. And it was like incredibly moving, and almost like inspiring. I had tears running down my face one moment, and then the next minute I was just proud to be in the room with her,
I know you're always, if you make documentaries, you're working on a bunch at the same time. Any things you can talk about coming up from your world?
Next thing coming up is actually a feature film, The Silk Road, based on the Amazon for drugs, the Darknet, right. Ross Ulbricht. So that film drops. Lionsgate's releasing that, and that premieres in about 5 weeks on February 19th. So if you're not sick of me yet, Adam, have me back for that one too.
That is fascinating. You don't think you can get more fascinating than a serial killer? You found the subject. So
it's a crazy story. It's a crazy.
Brian.
Well, speaking of not being sick of Tiller Russell, Tiller, I'm a big fan of your work. I'm very excited for Night Stalker because Operation Odessa is one of my favorite documentaries, and I've seen many, many documentaries. It's quietly a work of art. Like, you take this crazy subject and you make it compelling and funny and bizarre. Like, there were many moments where I think I said out loud, like, what the fuck is this? Who the fuck is this guy? Talk about this crazy documentary that I want everyone to see. Once you watch Night Stalker, please, everyone, turn over to Operation Odessa.
It's on Netflix as well too. It's this crazy story of basically a Russian gangster, a Miami playboy, and a Cuban narco spy get together, and they decide that they're going to sell a Russian submarine to the Colombians for $20 million. And it's the crazy, like, gonzo capers of these three guys who are best friends and, crooks and larger than life characters. And
did you find them to be smart or dumb? Because I get my back and forth the whole time.
It's to this day, I'm still asking the question, because like there was, some people said of Tarzan, that's the guy who ran this operation out of his strip club in Miami, named after his favorite movie, Porky's. He said, is this guy an abject moron, or is he like the most brilliant criminal mastermind in history? And to this day, we're still unraveling it. He calls me all the time. I'm surprised he hasn't called while we're on here.
That's great.
But we're going to remake that one as a feature film too. So
fantastic!
We'll pre-cue that one for you.
I love it.
Maybe Brendan Fraser can get back on the
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Do you have
Tarzan?
Connected the dots. I'm just thinking of this through the lens of someone who makes documentaries myself on occasion. Do people come to you and go, I have this idea? Do you come up with the stuff yourself? How does the process work in terms of the subject?
It's a great question. You know, in a weird way, I sort of feel like I'm making the same movie every time. You know, the corrupt cops in the 7-5, or the, you know, gangsters in Operation Odessa, or, you know, the murder investigation in The Last Narc, or Silk Road, or The Night Stalker. In a way, all of this stuff it's the criminal underworld, right? And the like gangsters, cops, killers, you know, the denizens of that world and their stories. And sometimes, you know, the thin and porous line between the two. So increasingly what happens is the stories find me. You know, and in the case of The Night Stalker, I was writing for a, you know, cop show at the time, a Dick Wolf TV show. And one of the writers came to me and he said, man, I just sat down and went to dinner with, you know, the murder cop that worked the Night Stalker case. And I think there's like an amazing documentary here. You want to go to dinner with this guy? And my answer is always yes. I'll go to dinner with anybody, you know, any maniac or anyone with a great story. And I sat down with Gil Carrillo, the cop who had worked this case. And we're sitting in this kind of, you know, knock around old school shitty diner, like right out of 1985 LA. And it looked like it was like a James Ellroy novel, you know, and he starts to unfurl this tale of this like long, hot, harrowing summer. And as soon as he started talking, I could just see the series, you know, see the movie in my mind. And I walked away from that and I was like, I got to tell that story. So weirdly, they kind of find me at this point.
You know, I realize the other thing that has probably tamped down serial killing in Los Angeles is central air conditioning, because the story was always
it's true, right?
They're in the San Fernando Valley, they're in Eagle Rock, it's July, it's 91 degrees at midnight, and he comes in through a screen door.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
The son of Sam.
Right. Now everyone's got dual pane glass windows with a nice latch on it and a nice HEPA filter and some central air, and you fucking button down before you go to bed. People had to sleep with the windows open.
The evolution of the culture, man, saved by AC. But for AC, none of us are sitting here today.
Let me give it a plug. A 4-part docuseries we'll all be watching, Night Stalker, The Hunt for a Serial Killer. It's available tomorrow as you hear this on Netflix, and we'll be watching Tiller. Come back anytime something drops. You're fascinating. The subject matter's fascinating, and can't get enough. Thanks, Tiller Russell.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, you guys. Have a safe and happy New Year.
Thanks. You. Speak soon. All right, let me hit Geico here, and then we'll get on with the news. Do you rent your home? Well, you do one or the other. How about your auto policy? How about you bundle them at Geico? Makes it easy to take your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance and bundle it up with your auto policy. Go to geico.com, get a quote, see just how much you could save. So easy when you go to geico.com today. That is geico.com. All right. I love a guy like Tiller because they're so interested and curious and animated, you know. And you
can't wait to give you the answer.
It's just that curiosity that it makes him such a great storyteller. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with Gina and Bald and the news right after this.
Give me the news with Grad. News with Gina Grad. Breaking viral, all those crazy Trump tweets. Give me news with Gina Grad. Trouble in the Middle East. Celebrity drunk meltdowns. Need news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
Well, let's just run down some of the headlines for impeachment riot palooza for 2021. If there's anything you want to stop down on, we can do that. But these are the big headlines coming out with all that today. First of all, a formal article of impeachment against President Trump has been introduced in the House. This is in response to the rally that turned chaotic and violent. 5 people died, including a Capitol police officer. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi plans to hold a vote on the article ASAP. So we will keep you updated. Breaking news right now, Chad Wolf stepping down as acting Secretary of Homeland Security. Public access to the Washington Monument closed till at least January 24th due to credible threats of violence. Representative Benny G. Thompson, the chair of the House Committee on Homeland Security, has called for the Capitol rioters to be added to TSA's no-fly list, but that might not happen before the inauguration. That's coming up very quickly. New York State Bar Association has opened an inquiry over whether to expel Rudy Giuliani for his trial by combat comment right before the Capitol riot. Former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund, who resigned after the riot, says he requested the National Guard days before last Wednesday, but his request was denied. I believe that was denied by the Sergeant at Arms, who I think has also resigned, who said he didn't like the optics of bringing in a bunch of National Guard before all this, so he canceled it.
What
And
about, can't the
yeah.
governor or the mayor override that?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe she agreed. Maybe it was an optics thing for everybody. I don't know. Finally,
how much power does it? Because there's no governor, obviously, of D.C. How much power does the mayor?
The mayor.
Yeah.
Well, how much? My question is, how much power does the mayor have?
No.
I think she didn't want it either, but we can look it up.
And finally, at least 25 people are under federal investigation for domestic terrorism charges. And again, they just want to make sure that the people who were rioting aren't on a flight back to D.C. for the inauguration. There's a lot of rumblings now of every Capitol building in every state being, I won't say stormed, being protested at the day of the inauguration. So it could get a little crazier before it calms down again.
Well, thank God we're locked down. There's never been a better time to be locked down. I mean, that's probably be the one day I'm actually happy we're locked down.
Stay home, people.
That's right.
In Medal of Freedom news, President Trump plans to give the New England coach Bill Belichick the Medal of Freedom on Thursday.
For missing playoffs?
Trump has called Belichick a very good friend, and last month reappointed him to the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. The coach and Patriots visited Trump at the White House after their Super Bowl victory in 2017, but didn't return after winning in 2019.
Yeah, I remember when I did Celebrity Apprentice, he introduced me to Robert Kraft, or Bob Kraft,
right, Bob.
As he called him. The owner was there, I guess, for the finale. I'm not sure how that worked. I'm not sure why Bob Kraft is coming out to New York and hanging for the finale of Celebrity Apprentice. But I do remember meeting Bob Kraft, who's a pretty diminutive guy, who seems like only yesterday we're talking about that whole rub and tug thing.
Rub and tug, yeah.
With Asia.
Why do you think I know who Bob Kraft is?
Yeah, that's true. He wasn't in Man of La Mancha. So, but he was the recipient of a rub and tug.
Right.
That whole story seemed weird to me. It seemed like the cops were talking about releasing the footage, and I remember going like, are the cops kind of trying to blackmail him, or what are they doing? Like, what were they punishing him? They wanted him.
Yeah, this is just off.
Go ahead. He needed to apologize and repent. Otherwise, they were talking about releasing this thing. It was kind of a weird. I didn't know that was the cops' jobs. But speaking of jobs, I did feel like Bob Kraft got jobbed on that. And he's also a widower, right?
Right,
so,
Yeah.
you got to give a pass to the widower who goes to the rub and tug, right?
Yeah, where else is he going to get it?
Yeah.
And I don't have all that information
That's right.
at the top of my head at all. But remember, it did come out that there was a lot of shady stuff going on with that, and people got, people from the police department got their asses handed to them for the way that was handled.
Yeah, that was one of my big epic arguments with Mike August, because Mike August was like, what's this billionaire going to the rub and tug for in the mini mall? Why isn't he just inviting like a hot, high-end call girl up to his penthouse? And I was like, and his argument was, if you do that, then mum's the word. Like, you wouldn't, no one would know about it. But I was like, if you invite a blue-eyed white chick up to your penthouse, and Bob Kraft answers the door in his Patriots bathrobe. She could take to Twitter, or she could do whatever. She can drop a dime. I like the anonymity of the all Asian strip club, place in the corner by the laundromat. You could fly under the radar there. And he kept coming back to, why not just hire, a high end whatever. And I was like, I think they would recognize you a lot faster than the strip mall rub and tug would.
It's funny because simultaneously you're right, and you've never been more wrong. Because
really?
What got more publicity?
I know.
Than
Well, the cops staked it out and had the cameras and everything.
I don't. A 180 for him.
I don't think the bitches be squealing. But I also said, hey, Mike, when I went and hung out with Eminem in Michigan, and we were doing Crank Yankers calls, I said,
eating Taco Bell.
Yeah, I said he had Taco Bell for lunch because he likes Taco Bell. And you could go, well, I remember he made like $53 million that year, and you could go, well, he's eating Taco Bell. He's a millionaire. So yeah, he likes it.
That's what he likes.
That's what Bob Kraft likes. Yeah, he likes the orchids of Asia.
Orchids of Asia. I mean, I have no idea.
You both remember the name of the Rug and Tub shop?
It was in the news a lot.
Yeah. And
yeah,
also,
I know.
when their business card is in your glove box, it's hard to forget.
That's right. When it's backwards on your ass from the imprint.
That's right. So an odd story from the horse racing world, and has nothing to do with bad tracks and horses going down at Hollywood Park, nothing like that. The New York Daily News reports that the horse trainer Eric Gio gave one of his horses a racist name to antagonize a black announcer. The horse won its debut on Aqueduct Racetrack in Queens under the name Grape Soda, kicking off a firestorm that appears to have ended Gio's career. The horse was sold after the race for $25,000. He was renamed Respect for All. And according to the Pollock report, Gio later admitted that the tweet was in honor of Ken Rudolph. He's the black analyst for the horse racing network TVG. Now, Rudolph has had a lot of thoughts about this. I've been going through his Twitter, and one of the statements he had was, I am not a victim, so you can miss me with that performative sympathy bullshit that you're all sending me. What happened Saturday in New York is not about a horse with a name. It's about a culture that has been cultivated and covered up in this industry since day one. The New York Racing Association announced Saturday that Gio was banned from its tracks and races. Several horse racing conglomerates and a TV broadcaster also said they were banning Gio. So this guy's career is over, and he kind of said in jest, like, oh, I was just kind of, giving Rudolph the business, but it ended his career.
Did he? I mean, horses all have crazy names. Racehorses have crazy names. So, like, Grape Soda in a bubble is probably not nearly the craziest name you've heard, and wouldn't even be sort of racially motivated. I don't know who would connect those dots. He had to connect the dots, right?
That's what I said, because, I don't consider myself, I've been around the block a few times, and even that one missed me completely. But he did sort of admit to it and say, like, it was a joke or whatever. And that was it.
He admitted to it. That's the weird.
Yeah, I don't know if we have that audio, but I can.
Did he have animosity toward this announcer, or was he kind of busting his chops? I mean, it's a weird thing to admit.
Yeah, I don't think they were friendly. I mean, I don't think that Rudolph knew Gio personally.
Yes.
I was thinking they must have. The guy's an announcer. It'd be like if Robert Kraft knew Al Michaels. That wouldn't be outrageous.
Right.
Al Michaels is an announcer, Gina.
Thank you.
Not the gay guy from Wham.
I'm looking it up right now, but let's see.
Or the lead singer from Poison. It's just, though, I get the part where you're making a joke. I like the notion of having the guy yell out something that he might not want to yell out. I like the thought of that as a ball-busting premise, but then why would you hang yourself with your own rope? Like, why would you then admit to that?
I don't know if Kaylin has the picture at the ready, but I'll tell you, this was a tweet that Gio put out on January 1st, a couple weeks ago, with the horse in the stable. And it says, this colt will run next week and has unique name in honor of a TVG analyst. And it has a black fist emoji next to it.
Yeah.
I think
that's a self-inflicted wound.
Yeah. But he's making a joke, right? I think he thought he was making a joke.
Well, the next line is, this is from the New York Times. The following day, Gio tweeted again about the Colts workout, characterizing it as smooth as a menthol cool, with a black hand giving the thumbs up symbol.
Is this guy foreign, or is he like some sort of mook, like New York, like?
Brian, I'm right with you on this. This feels like a cultural thing, like a foreign. Like this guy's not hip to the ways of the country.
Like, hey, bro, look at the funny joke I make. Like that kind of
He's
thing.
just a wild, crazy guy.
Yeah.
He's the fest drunk brother, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, maybe we'll find out what his nationality
Something's
was.
going to snap this into focus.
Yeah, I'm with you. This doesn't feel like medium white guy activity. Not to take a turn for the racial myself, but this feels like a cultural thing. I'm with Brian on this. We can look it up. You can.
Oh, now I gotta know. He looks like a medium white guy, but I don't know what. Just pull up a picture of him and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll get that in a minute. Nicki Minaj, she has agreed to pay $450,000 to Tracy Chapman over a copyright infringement dispute. So the rapper had been set for trial after the singer sued her for sampling the 1988 song Baby Can I Hold You? Great song.
Yeah.
I'm sure you all know it. In her track, Sorry, a collaboration with Nas, which was never officially released, but was played on New York radio station. And I have a clip of it. Court documents have now revealed that last month, an out-of-court settlement was made. So Nicki approached Chapman multiple times to use the sample for her album Queen, but Chapman is on a do not sample list of artists who will not give their rights to anybody. So she said, screw it, and used it anyway. Now, editorial, there is no comparison between the original and how it was, what was done to this song. Just pitiful. So here's the original Tracy Chapman, if you have that, Kaylin.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Oh. So this is one of the parts that was sampled. And this is what happened to it.
I still love you. Sorry is all that you can say. Years gone by and still.
I don't even think this really counts as a sample. She's just singing the song.
Tough stuff, man.
Well, also as a lesson we all should learn from Ivan Reitman, which is don't go to Huey Lewis and tell him you want him to write a song for Ghostbusters and then go, okay, fine, you've turned me down, and then go write a song that sounds like I want a new drug. So if you're going to go to Tracy Chapman and ask, fine, but if she says no, now you're on the radar.
Yeah, now move on. She even had a tweet that she deleted saying something to the effect of like, man, I'm so torn, y'all. I want to use this song, but she said no. And I think her lawyers had that, probably had her delete that immediately.
The Tracy Chapman song that I love is Talking About a Revolution. That's my favorite.
Put that as your favorite.
Oh, yeah. I don't like whatever she got a Grammy for after that bluesy.
Give me one reason to stay here.
That song sucks. But turn back. It's just like a non-song. It's just really slow and plodding and everything. But talking about revolution, man, that song cooks. She was discovered by Brian Koppelman.
Yeah.
Huh, that's right. Brian was in the record industry.
Yeah, his dad was Brian's dad was
crazy.
like an A&R guy, and then Brian saw her playing a show and went home, told his dad about this amazing singer.
Brian, don't you wish your dad was an A&R guy?
In retrospect, that would have been pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I
Always.
think all the actors got discovered.
Because they always tell these stories where it's like, I came home one day from school and Bob Dylan was playing the piano. Like,
It was in my
there's
kitchen.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been sweet.
Would have been sweet.
Well, speaking of music, Dr. Fauci thinks if everybody does what they're supposed to do and the COVID protocols work and the vaccines and the blah, 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 we could see theaters and live entertainment venues reopening sometime in the fall of this year. But for that to happen, vaccine distribution needs to succeed. Theaters have to have good ventilation, good air filters. Audiences will still have to wear masks. Under those circumstances, he says, I think you could start getting back to almost full capacity of seating. And acts, some are hopeful to resume this year, but many have already pushed to next year.
Adam saw the billboards in Vegas.
Yeah. I want to go into a movie theater and watch a movie in a theater badly. But wearing a mask in a movie theater is fine, but you can't serve someone a 2-gallon tub of popcorn and tell them to wear a mask. That is literally the most anti-mask food on the planet. They have these big, giant tubs of popcorn. You put them between your legs. The last 3 hours, you put your hand in your mouth with every grab. Whoever's sitting next to you is grabbing into the tub as well. And if you got a big tub of popcorn and wore a mask in a theater, the over-under on the times you pulled that mask up and down would be a playing card in the spokes of a Schwinn.
You wouldn't even bother.
Yeah, you just so if they're gonna put their money where their mouth is, pardon the pun, and require masks, they're gonna have to eliminate popcorn. Not saying I'm for it, but you cannot serve popcorn and tell people to wear a mask.
Adam, you are not thinking outside the popcorn box. Individual buckets for one, feed strap. That's the mask.
I think you would suffocate, although if that's the way I got to go, that's the way I got to go. But you put that, it would just be impossible to eat. I mean, you think about those big tubs of popcorn, you're just grazing for the entire movie. And then the only time you're not eating the popcorn is when you have to draw off your drink because it's the salty brine is now in your mouth. We're having technical issues, so we can't get the photos of the horse trainer. But let's do one more, Gina Grant.
Okay. Well, let's celebrate since we're talking about food. I'm curious if either of you remember this decadent ice cream luxury item that I only had at friends' houses. Do you remember Viennetta? It was like a loaf. Oh, well, you know what? Kaylin doesn't have, it's okay. I was going to show you the commercial. Oh, we have it. Okay, great. So Viennetta launched as a Christmas specialty by the British brand Walls in 1982. Is still a staple dessert in the United Kingdom. We had it here under the Breyers brand, but it was discontinued in the 90s, despite continuing everywhere else, Europe, Australia, everywhere. But now foodandwine.com says that Ripley ice cream loaf is making its way back to the States under the Good Humor name. Tell me if this commercial rings a bell.
To this day, it's a mystery who gave in to temptation. But one slice.
One more thing I wasn't going to eat.
Irresistible.
Oh, yeah, you never had it.
Dark layers and sinfully rich ice cream.
I miss Frusian Glasia.
So who had their eyes on that last slice?
It's a murder
I
mystery.
remember they're all eyeing that last piece, even though they're at a fancy dinner. And that would be gauche.
One slice is never enough.
It was this Ripley loaf with layers of thin chocolate, like crackly goodness inside. And it was supposed to be very fancy. And my friends' parents would serve it at dinner parties, which is the only time I ever had it on the day after.
Yeah, it's a sad testimonial when you think about your childhood and then you have to think about what you ate, but where you were at. Or like you're like, my friend Steve Hughes had a ping pong table and we used to go over there all the time. Like somebody had a bumper pool table. Somebody had a pinball machine. For me, I was so fucking low rent. Like my neighbor had Stratego. So I would hang out at his house and we'd play Stratego. Like that fucking game was $8. Anybody could have had it. Like people, or there was, growing up, there was who had a swimming pool, there was always that family that had the desserts. like they had the Hostess cupcakes and they'd put them in the dispenser and they'd stand it up like a silo and they'd open the bottom and you'd pull one out and another one would drop in and replace it.
Wow. What are you at a cafe?
There was just the people that had the weird stuff like the Space Stick bars and the Carnation instant breakfast that was more chocolatey this. Like there was the friends that had the good shit.
I know the dude you're talking about because a friend of mine, his dad was an Entenmann's driver, and he got the factory the dispensers basically. It was the stuff that was like in the convenience stores. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like the retail stuff.
Yeah. Later on, that sort of gave way to whose mom has pot.
No, those two are a good couple. That's a power couple. Pot guy and Entenmann's guy.
Yeah, but I would break everyone down into what they had at their house. Yeah. I had a friend.
Barbie Dream House.
Had a friend that had one of those first-gen big screen TVs with that weird 3-light combination laser
blue,
thing in the front of it. Later on, it was who had pot and whose dad had a porno and a VCR. There was that one. There was a lot of who has what and how we get in hold of it. And it was always funny for me because I was always starving. And the kids who lived at the house, the hostess, the pantry filled with Twinkies and cupcakes, it was no big whoop to them because they lived with it, But for me, it was always on my mind. And I was always like saying, like the kid would be like, let's go outside and shoot some hoop. By the way, basketball hoop was another big draw. Garage with tools in it. Like really anything for me.
Just a house.
Other than rotting dad on sofa with book. But I'd always we'd shoot baskets and I'd go, well, we've been out here for 9 minutes. Why don't we go inside and make some instant pudding? Like that was instant fucking pudding. That was a big one. Do they even have that anymore? Do people eat?
Yeah, you know what? It's in the baking section. They assume you're going to put it in a pie, not just eat it.
They don't do it to their head anymore. All right, let's bring it home, Gina Grad.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
Tommy John, start 2021 off right. Trade out those old cheap underwear that are sliding down and got the holes in them for some top shelf Tommy John. Once you get into Tommy John, you're never going back. Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics. I am wearing, what color am I wearing? Where are my black ones? Black ones right now. Once you get into it, you're into it. You'll never go back. The undershirts, the loungewear, it's all so good. Waistbands never roll down. Legs never ride up. Each of Tommy John's 13 million pairs they have underwear they've sold are covered by the no wedgie guarantee. It's the best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free, right, Dawson?
Go to TommyJohn.com/Adam and save 15% on your first order. Go right now. Save 15% right now at TommyJohn.com/Adam. It's TommyJohn.com/Adam to save 15% on your first order. See site for details.
Well, we got Jason Whitlock tomorrow. We got Frank Stallone coming tomorrow. Kyle's going to be with us as well. So buckle up for comedy. And again, Naples, Florida coming up this weekend. Oklahoma City coming up February 26th, 27th. And doing live podcasts there and stand-up as well. Kansas City, Missouri. That's the is it Arvest? Yes, Arvest Bank Theater. That's March 25th. And Royal Oak, Michigan, the 26th of March. And Waukegan, Illinois in May. So just go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows. You can check out our stand-up there at our YouTube page as well. Tiller Russell, 4-part docuseries, Night Stalker, you should watch on Netflix, and that'll be available tomorrow as you hear this. Until next time, Adam Carolla for Tiller Russell and Gina Grad and Paul Bryan saying mahalo.